Climate change is an urgent and existential threat, and all countries have to build on the Paris Agreement to address this global challenge to humanity.
Welcome to Cities of Tomorrow, powered by Engie, where we explore what it takes for cities to achieve net zero carbon emissions amid Asia's rapid urbanisation. This is your host, Matt Rickard. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Cities of Tomorrow podcast. And today I'm got Anh-Hà de Foucauld on the show. She is the head of business development for district cooling systems in Asia Pacific. And we're here to talk about beating the heat. So everything to do with district cooling. So, hey Anh-Hà, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Matt. Good morning. Very happy to be there with you today. So my name is Anh-Hà de Foucauld. I've been working for Engie for about 10 years now. I'm heading the district heating and cooling development for Engie Asia Pacific. I have about 10 years of experience in energy efficiency, district energy, and renewable energies. And I would like to thank you for inviting me to this podcast today.
Cool. My pleasure. And look, we're going to jump straight in because, I've worked in energy efficiency. I know quite a bit about the sector and the stuff you do, but I'd never heard of district cooling. And, what we really want to cover in the next 20 minutes or so is what it's all about and help to kind of share some knowledge around that. So, for anyone new to the topic like myself, what is district cooling? How does it work and how energy efficient is it?
So it's a good question. In layman's terms, I would say that district cooling is a way of producing chilled water in a power plant. The chilled water is distributed to the nearby facilities through a network of underground insulated pipes to provide efficient air conditioning to a cluster of buildings. We can introduce energy storage system to help balance the production and the consumption of chilled water. And the power plant and networks are monitored 24/7 from a controlled room.
So, how much more energy efficient is that than kind of traditional air conditioners? I'm assuming quite a bit, and that's probably a big part of the motivation of rolling out these types of systems, right?
It is actually. A district cooling system usually comes as an alternative to what we call standalone solutions. By comparison to this conventional usage of standalone system, district cooling systems are more efficient and they generate significant savings, should it be in capital expenditure, energy, and operating costs. So, in terms of efficiency, it's difficult to give a number. It could be as much as 30% more energy efficient than a standalone system. But we have to look at a global savings at a district level. The way to achieve those savings is actually due to the economies of scale created by district cooling system, because it enables to aggregate the cooling needs of multiple buildings. And this would avoid some sunk cost and operational costs that would be associated to oversized chilled water systems. In addition to that, so there are some avoided capital expenditure costs due to the reduction of the capacity of the chillers and the cooling towers. And the district cooling system enables to free up space on the rooftop, for example, because the buildings get rid of the cooling towers. So you can install, for example, rooftop solar or green rooftops on your building. And there is also freeing of valuable space in the building, for example, in the basement where the chilled water is delivered, because the footprint is smaller. So the buildings have more space, for example, for car parks. What I would say is the traditional air conditioning system usually use 50% on 20 or up to 70% of the peak electricity demand in a building. And usually this happens at peak hours. And so peak cost also of electricity. A district cooling system enabled to switch this peak power demand on the grid during off-peak period. And this is because we can use thermal energy storage, which are basically big chilled water tanks that we can fill during off-peak periods, that would say, for example, nighttime. And we could use this chilled water to produce air conditioning during the off-peak, during the peak period, which is during the daytime.
listening to you talk about it there, I mean, there's obviously a lot of work in the design and implementation of these types of systems. So how practical is it with an already built city? Does district cooling, can it be implemented in that way? Or have you really got to start from the kind of ground up with new developments and installing it that way?
Actually, district cooling is viable for both existing cities and new developments. We have within NG several examples around the world and in Southeast Asia. For example, what we call a brownfield project, meaning it's an existing city. You have the possibility to integrate a district cooling plant in an existing building and bury underground some network to connect existing building. It's actually a very big opportunity because when you have a cluster of existing building, you can know very well what are the needs of your customers in terms of air conditioning and design the more efficient solution to supply air conditioning to them. NG has an example here in the Philippines. It's a district cooling system that is called Northgate. It's the first and the largest district cooling system in the Philippines, which was commissioned in September 2017. It was a joint venture with a real estate partner called Philinvest, which had a need to supply cooling for a business process outsourcing park they have in Alabang, where they need 24/7 cooling. So we have installed a 42 megawatt plant that caters for 15 buildings and a network of about 3 kilometers, connecting progressively existing building to our system. For greenfield projects, so let's say new development, the challenge are a bit different because indeed you have less barriers to the construction because, the area is new, you are a bit more free in the path of your piping network, for example, but you know less about the future development. You can expect to have a commercial area, some office buildings and so on, but there is a lot of uncertainty, whereas you need to size your district cooling network for the final development. So it's another set of challenge, but the interest of district cooling is that it is modular. So you can progressively also add some equipment to your system in order to accommodate for a growing need. And for that, NG also has an example in Malaysia. It's a district cooling that is installed in Cyberjaya, close to Kuala Lumpur, and is called Megajana. It's a joint venture between Cyberview and NG Services Malaysia, where we are the sole provider of the cooling for the city of Cyberjaya. And actually, the district cooling network grew with the city. So it was created with the first plant at the initiation of the development of the city. And now we have 2 interconnected plants, which are equipped with thermal energy storage and providing about 80 megawatts to about 51 buildings that have developed in this city.
It's almost like you're kind of centralizing the process of air conditioning, taking it away from the building so you can make it more efficient because you can run multiple buildings on the system. And interesting for me because I thought, you'd have said, oh no, you've got to start with a new development. But effectively, you've got buildings within that geography, I suppose. It's almost a geographical process. Then you can run those into the same system and gain more efficiencies for buildings coming onto that district cooling, yeah?
You're absolutely right. And what I would like also to highlight is that there is no minimum scale to initiate a district cooling system. Every time we just need to prove that the solution benefits the client against them having their own standalone solution.
Awesome. So in terms of, this region, Southeast Asia, what's the future of this technology? Is there bigger efficiencies to be gained, new innovation coming in? I'm assuming you're always looking at this in terms of how you can be more efficient with district cooling. Yeah. What does the future hold with this type of technology?
Actually, there are 2 things to consider for the development of this technology in the region. First is also the maturity of the countries to support the development of such solutions, because we are talking about infrastructure projects that needs to be integrated in master planning and putting together multiple stakeholders together in order to make it happen. But what we feel is that even if there is a different levels of maturity in Southeast Asia and the APAC region, there is clearly, we can see favorable trends. If I take the example, now we see more and more government entities that are encouraging the development of district cooling systems, but also private sectors. So if we align this with the maturity level of the countries, we see that there is a potential. For example, in Malaysia, the country is benefiting of a very good awareness of district cooling systems. It's a well-known solution. There are incentives to promote the development of such solution, especially favorable electricity tariffs that encourage the implementation of thermal energy storage and produce the chilled water during off-peak period.
Well, just probably a good segue. I mean, you're kind of answering the question, but, how ready are developers, how ready are governments for this? Does it need to be driven by the kind of innovation organization level? Or, how ready are developers and governments with this type of technology and rolling out district cooling?
For example, for governments, I would like to maybe mention the case of Singapore, because in Singapore, we see that the context is quite favorable also for district cooling, because we see more and more tenders going through public or semi-public counterparts who are actually asking on a regular basis on new development the developers to be connected to district cooling systems. For Singapore, for example, ENGIE was awarded the design of the integrated system for the Punggol Digital District. So the district cooling system will be up to about 100 megawatts and will serve Jurongtown Corporation, which is a public entity, and a university, the Singapore Institute of Technology, with efficient cooling.
Cool. It sounds like a lot of progress, a lot of work, but I'm sure there are still many barriers. What are the barriers to kind of broader rollout of this type of technology?
In terms of barriers, I think what is key is really in terms of stakeholders engagement. And I mentioned earlier that we have really multiple stakeholders to take into account. It goes from the public entities, the governments which do the regulations, to the building developers and the building owners. So all those people have their own timeline, their own constraints in terms of budget, in terms of CSR targets, and so on. And the alignment of all those players is a key challenge to develop such an infrastructure project. So for us, what is very important is to work with, let's say, the public sector to help the development of such systems. And there are 3 steps where the public or entities or the government agencies can help and support the development of district cooling systems. First, it's during the project initiation. If I give the example of the district cooling systems we have within ENGIE, most of our district networks were developed following a major public event which served as a catalyst. So there were some public expositions, Olympic Games, and things like this that would actually generate a push for a development of an area. Then the public authorities can help because they are the regulators. So they can help by facilitating the obtention of construction permits, overcoming some regulations, requirements, or delivering subsidies. This is really helping this kind of project. And one key point also to help the development of a district cooling is to have an anchor tenant, to have the first building that would be taking chilled water and air conditioning from our centralized power plants. So this is doable if the public entities would commit for 1 or 2 buildings to be connected to the system to create this base load. Also in the initiation, I would like to say that the public entities can help by proposing some attractive areas in terms of density, accessibilities for the construction, space for storage, or being close to a natural resource in order to install the production plant. The second axis where the public agencies can help projects of district cooling is by making them grow. So municipalities, they can help by giving, for example, some incentives to the buildings. So the other counterpart, other stakeholders to connect to district cooling. So it could be through architectural constraints. And of course, one of the great, let's say, accelerator for district cooling is when the municipality actually make mandatory the connection to the district cooling, which is something we saw for our London energy network or the one we have also in Lisboa. And then it really helps to develop the most suitable district cooling, more efficient for a certain area. And that's it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was going to say, I mean, there's so much innovation there. You know, one of the questions I had actually was, are there more gains that are going to come through neuro innovation? But you covered so much. I don't know if there's more to cover in terms of new innovation that will give you even greater gains on energy efficiency in this space. And two questions. And the second parallel to that, I suppose, is how does this really affect the person on the street? You know, what is the real effect of the person on the street in terms of these types of technologies?
Sure. So in terms of innovation, I think I mentioned the possibility of use renewable resources. So due to the scale of the district cooling plant, you have the possibility first to use thermal energy storage. I mentioned that this is very interesting because you can produce during the off-peak period. And so it's not adding constraints on the electric grid for the cities. And you can either store the cooling under the form of chilled water or under the form of ice water. And then use it during the peak period. So that's a very interesting feature of district energy. Then there is the possibility to use the cooling from the lake, the river, the sea, where you have natural cooling produced by the environment. And this can be used either to cool your equipment. So instead of the cooling tower, you will directly provide, recover the heat from the chillers and dissipate it in your water body. Then in terms of innovation, I would like just to highlight that the economies of scale and the fact that you have a bigger industrial equipment working at their best efficiency makes it by default more efficient than standalone technologies. So it doesn't have to be really innovative, but the design itself of a district energy system makes it more efficient.
You've talked about a lot of innovation. You know, obviously, we understand the business sector predominantly rolls this out. Governments are involved, but the person on the street, what are the benefits here? What is the impact? What should people be thinking about who are watching this? You know, and thinking, great, I've understood district cooling now, but how does it affect me? You know.
Sure. So I would like to address this question, mention a phenomenon which is called the heat island effect. It's not something which is very well known, but basically district cooling system is a solution for urban areas, very dense, the cities. And we know that globally the cities are going to grow in terms of population density in the coming years. This growth of cities is actually creating what we call a heat island effect. So there are some researches that show that the world cities are heating, I think, at a pace that is twice the global average in terms of increase of temperature. And this is due to several things. There are more people in the cities. We are using building materials that are attracting the heat from the sun. We are removing greeneries from the forest to grow the cities. You have also the heat from the human activity itself, from the industrial process, transportation, and air conditioning. So this makes the warming of the cities much higher than in the countryside. And we have led a case study in our city of Paris, where we are operating the district cooling as ENGIE. And this has shown that if we use air conditioning from the district cooling systems versus if we were developing only standalone solution, the district cooling system would enable to avoid a rise of 2 degrees Celsius during daytime and 2.5 degrees Celsius during nighttime for the summer period. So during the, heat wave that we are actually encountering at the moment in Europe, district cooling system can make the everyday life of people much more comfortable because walking in the street would be less difficult during those heat wave.
Cool. Look, I think you've made me a district cooling expert in under 30 minutes, and I'm sure our viewers would feel the same. So was there anything I didn't ask that you'd like to share in terms of district cooling?
No, I think we have covered most of it. I would just like to emphasize that this solution is really a way to bring decarbonization to city centers, to areas like campuses or airports, because we can really benefit from the economies of scale, the additional efficiency, the integration of renewables such as biomass or solar to make cooling more efficient. And we will need more cooling in the coming years. So I think this solution needs to be integrated in the future development and in the existing areas to make it more sustainable.
Great. Well, look, it's been great to meet, Anna. It's been great to learn about district cooling, and we all look forward to learning more and seeing how this technology grows and evolves over time. For anyone watching now, we'll put up a QR code. You can scan that, learn more about Anna, her team, what ENGIE do with district cooling. And yeah, thanks so much for joining the podcast, Anna.
Thank you, Matt. It was a pleasure.